This is Anker's first GanPrime battery. With a massive 140 watts of power output, you can fast charge 3 devices all at once, multiple times over, fully recharge an iPad Pro and then some, or even use it to top up a 16-inch MacBook Pro. But with great power comes a few caveats and things to know, so let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel, it's Jack here, and today we're taking a look at the new Anker 737 power bank. Anker's first battery powered by GanPrime, what they're calling their next generation of GAN products. As you may know, GAN chargers and batteries use gallium nitride instead of silicon, which is capable of conducting much higher voltages. In short, electrical currents can pass through components made from gallium nitride even faster than silicon, meaning that it's more efficient and that less heat is produced. GanPrime is Anker's own branding for their next series of GAN chargers. They had an event recently where they showed off a bunch of new GanPrime products with even faster charging speeds, better energy transfer efficiency, and in most cases in smaller, more portable designs. But what caught my eye is their new 737 power bank. I have a couple of smaller capacity batteries from Anker already for keeping my iPhone or my AirPods charged on the go, but I have been looking for something with a bigger capacity, mainly to keep multiple things charged up without having to keep recharging the battery. And for things like charging up my Mini 3 Pro drone batteries when I'm away from home, I have 3 batteries which last about 30 minutes each when flying, so having a bigger battery pack means that I can keep these used for longer without having to worry about finding somewhere to plug in. The 737 has a huge 24,000 mAh capacity, an 84.6 watt-hour rating with a max output of 140 watts, more than double that of the previous version at 65 watts, plus it supports the USB Power Delivery 3.1 spec. All of the I/O is on the top with 2 USB-C ports and 1 USB-A port. These output at different amounts depending on how many devices are charging and with what ports, which we'll get to in a sec. There's a big button on the right side, and this is used for one of my favourite features actually, and that's the screen. It shows you a bunch of useful info. A single press shows the battery percentage. With a second press you can see some battery stats like its internal temperature, the battery health and cycles, and how many times the screen has turned on. Not really sure how useful that one is, but it's there. And with a third press it gives you an option to disable the auto screen off. And what's really cool is when plugging something into charge, the first screen changes to show each port and the wattage output that's being sent to each device. You might have seen me use this little wattage meter on the channel before. I use it to check that a battery does output at the wattage that it's advertised as, but it's also pretty useful to have built in here too, so you can get an idea on how fast your devices are actually charging. A lot of modern tech will fast charge for the first 50% or so while plugged in, and then reduce the amount of power that they draw to charge at a slower rate as a way to preserve the life of the battery. So it's cool to be able to actually see this happening here on the screen. There's also a countdown timer telling you how many hours of battery charge the 737 has left based on how much it's currently outputting to other devices, and this switches to show the time it will take to recharge the 737 when it's plugged in. And a fun little Easter egg, if you hold down the side button for a couple of seconds, it makes some little blinking eyes appear on the screen. It's kind of cute. The screen does look a bit dim here in some of these shots, but I do have very bright lights on when I'm filming in here. It's fairly readable in normal daylight, but you might need to shield the screen with your hand in bright sunlight. Also, the display automatically rotates when you hold the battery upside down, which is neat. So as I mentioned, the 737 outputs a max of 140 watts, but that does depend on how many devices are on charge and how many ports are in use. So for single port charging just one device, either of the USB-C ports can output at 140 watts max. Meanwhile, the A port is limited to 18 watts. For 2-port charging using one of the USB-C ports plus the A port, the C port outputs at 100 and the A port at 18. When using both the C ports, they'll both share 140 watts between them. How much each outputs it depends on the needs of the devices that are on charge. And for 3-port charging 3 devices at once using all the ports together, the 2 C ports will share 122 watts, while the A port again is limited to 18 watts max. And I know that all sounds like a lot to take in, but having the on-screen stats really helps as you can see how much the ports are outputting and how it changes as you connect more devices. All you really need to remember is if you're connecting a very high power device like a MacBook Pro, don't plug in anything else if you want to get the fastest charging speed. For most smaller bits of tech, like phones and smartwatches, you don't really need to think too much about it, just plug in. Even the most power-hungry iPad Pros draw a maximum of 30 or so watts. What's also useful to know about is the 737 has a trickle charge mode, and this is designed for using with smaller bits of tech that have a low power draw, so things like wireless earbuds. You can enable trickle charging by double pressing the side button, which makes a green dot appear on the screen to show that it's active, and this just tells the battery to output a lower charge to the connected device so that the power bank doesn't accidentally turn off and stop charging, like it normally would if a device is drawing so little power. That's also why in some of these shots the display shows 0.1 watts being drawn from the A port even though nothing is plugged in. I thought that Ghost was stealing my electricity, but no, it's just a side effect of having trickle charging enabled without having anything plugged in. On a full battery, it recharged my 16-inch MacBook Pro to 67% before being depleted, and that just took 38 minutes. You do need to use the MagSafe cable for the fastest speed. So it's not a full charge, as the 16-inch does need a lot of power, but it's a nice fast top-up when you need it. And for the 14 and 13-inch MacBooks or the MacBook Airs with smaller batteries, you can expect even more charge, nearing closer to 100%. During this, the built-in temp monitor measured 50 degrees Celsius internally, but it definitely wasn't that hot to the touch. It did feel quite warm, so as I'd say with most power banks, probably best to leave it out on a table or something and not tucked away in a bag while you're charging high-power devices. For my 12 Pro Max, it fast charged to 50% in about 30 minutes, and a full recharge of the iPhone took 1 hour and 45 minutes, the same you'd get from using a wall charger. With 82% remaining on the 737, you should get about 4.5 full charges. Again, expect more with smaller capacity phones. With my drone batteries, it's difficult to give exact numbers as I don't let them deplete all the way, otherwise the drone would fall out the sky, but I've charged up all three in the dock no problem, with plenty left over for more flights, or for recharging other bits of tech. So that's all the great things about this power bank. It's got a big capacity, fast charging speeds, multi-device charging. What are the catches? Well, there are a couple, and the first and most obvious is its size and weight. As you can tell, this thing is big at 15.5 centimeters tall, 5.5 wide and 5 centimeters deep. It's not something that you're going to want to take and carry around in your pocket. It probably won't even fit. And it's heavy too, weighing about 630 grams, which is like 2.5 iPhone 12 or 13 Pro Maxes. But this isn't really a knock on the battery itself. I mean, of course it's going to be big with the capacity it has, but it might not be the kind of battery that you want to take with you for everyday use. If you're going somewhere more off the grid, then this will be great. It'll keep all of your smaller devices charged multiple times over. Or if you're carrying a backpack and you just want one battery that will last you the whole day for a few different devices, then again, this will work really well for you. But if you want something just to keep your iPhone charged, then this probably is a bit much. There are smaller and much lighter options out there, like Anker's MagGo batteries. And the other thing is charging. If a battery is going to output a lot of power, then it's also going to need a lot to be recharged. You can't just use a 5 or 20 watt phone charger unless you want to wait for literally hours for it to recharge. It has USB-C input through the C1 port, and it supports a maximum of 140 watts in, the same as its output. But most people probably aren't going to have a 140 watt wall charger just yet. I happen to have one, as it came with my 16-inch MacBook Pro, so I've been using that for now. Anker did announce some new GanPrime wall chargers at the same time as this, like the 150 watt 747, but it doesn't look like it's coming to Europe, unfortunately. And there is the lower power 120 watt 737 that you could go for instead over here. A 140 watt charger isn't required, but it is what you'll need if you want the fastest recharging speed. With one, it will take, in my experience, just 50 to 60 minutes to fully recharge, which is actually pretty impressive considering how much power this thing puts out. A 100 or 120 watt charger will also do a decent job if you have one, but yeah, don't go using a phone charger if you're in a hurry. Comment below and tell me actually, what is the fastest charger that you have at the moment? I'm curious to know. I really like this battery. It is big and bulky, but that comes with a lot of recharging power. I can recharge my drone batteries away from home, or quickly fast charge and top up my MacBook Pro, and quickly charge a bunch of devices all at once. It's got a solid build too. The casing is plastic, but it doesn't feel flimsy at all. It actually, to be honest, it feels like a brick with all of the weight. The grooves in the sides do sometimes catch bits of dirt and debris, but it's easy to wipe clean. And in the box it comes with a carry bag, a quick start guide, and a 60cm USB-C cable. The screen is a great feature. It's really cool being able to see the charging stats and check the battery temperature and its health. It could do with being a tad brighter, and it is glossy and a bit of a fingerprint magnet, but it's not really that big of a deal. The port selection is good. Personally, I'd have preferred it to be all USB-C. I've pretty much moved away entirely from USB-A at this point, but I can see it being useful here to some people. Overall, it's a solid power bank for anyone looking for a lot of power and multi-device fast charging. The 737 costs $150 or £140 in the UK. I'll put some links in the description. But you might also need to pick up a high power wall charger if you don't already have one, which is definitely something to consider. I do want to get one of Anker's new GanPrime chargers, either the 737 or the massive 240 watt 749, if it even comes to the UK. And when I do, I'll make a video on it, so get subscribed and hit the bell if you'd like to see my thoughts on that too. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like button, it really helps the channel out, and feel free to drop any questions or just say hi in the comment section below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.